nurse for 47 years. I still actively work because I don't know what to do other than be a nurse. I'm a nurse in here. I'm a nurse at work. I'm a nurse in the street. Stacy, my daughter, can tell you wherever I go, I be asking people, are you okay? They be like, Mommy, mind your business, and I don't know what else to do. So I just continue to work as a nurse. I also have a business called Hope for Your Health, and my passion is helping people with diabetes, because I find that people with diabetes don't manage their diabetes correctly. It's not that they're non-adherent or non-compliant. Sometimes they don't understand how we teach. We teach them, we talk at, we don't talk to them, the healthcare team. So that's something I'm going to, when I do stop working, which is going to be very soon, I'm going to focus in on that. And actually, that's what I did my doctorate dissertation in. But this morning, we're going to talk about health. And the first thing I want to talk about is self-care, because we as women of color, that's what we're very deficient in, is self-care. We've been taught and ingrained to actually take care of everybody else, but we forget about ourselves. So I want to start off with this quote by Maya Angelou that says, I would like to be known as an intelligent woman, a courageous woman, a loving woman, a woman who teaches by being. And she left the rest of it blank. So I'm going to let you fill in the blank later. But self-care is a discipline. It requires tough mindedness. It requires a deep and personal understanding of your priorities, a respect for yourself, and the people who you choose to spend your life with. So there's a lot of different quotes that I wrote in an article that says what self-care means to me as a woman of color. And this was once featured in Essence magazine in 2018. And she said, caring for myself is not a self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. So I want you to think about this question. What does self-care look like in the eyes of a woman of color? And it's a very personal question, and it's a very strong question. And it's not something that you can answer right now. But one of the things that we lack as women of color is our self-image. We've been told how we're supposed to see ourselves. We've been told that when we look in the mirror, what we're supposed to see. But I'm going to ask you, what do you see when you look in the mirror? And where does that image come from? I remember as a little girl, I have a flat nose. And I remember the kids used to tease me, Linda has a flat nose. So I said, when I got older, I was going to get a nose job. Well, the nose job cost more money than I had, and I was already broke, busted, and disgusted, so I let the nose job go. And I figured God gave it to me. He designed me this way, so I still got it at 69, and I'm going to keep it until Jesus calls me home. But when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Are you satisfied with your reflection? Can you change it? And if you could, what would you change it to? So another thing that we lack is self-esteem. How do we see ourselves? Are we worthy? And who decides, are we worthy? Well, my answer is, we were born worthy because God created us worthy. Because if he didn't think we was worthy, he wouldn't have created us. But society says we're not worthy because we don't have the right color skin. But God strategically designed all of us with the color that he wanted us to have. And we are a royal priesthood and a chosen generation. So we are just right. And so our self-esteem should reflect that we're just right for right now and for the time to come. So I'm going to flip through some of these handouts. So I'm going to start with health. The first thing is self-esteem and weight. So we know that from little children, especially my parents came from Chattanooga, Tennessee, that everything that Band-Aid was to eat, right? If you bumped your knee, have a piece of cake. If somebody made you mad, have a piece of cake, right? I was even raised in a time where it was still very segregated, and I actually remembered that we couldn't go to certain stores. I actually remembered we went to Alabama to see the Five Blind Boys, which my daughter and probably younger people don't remember, and it was actually in an open field, right? And they had to build a wooden stage, right? Not only that, the stage was built and the bathroom was right there, and it said for whites only, and the water fountain was right there for white only, right? And as a young girl growing up in New York, I didn't know what this was about. But for colored only was so far away that grandma taught us how to pee in the bushes, because that was the only way we was going to be able to go to the bathroom, right? So going back to self-esteem and weight, because we were nurtured on eating, right? We didn't learn the right way to eat. And people say, oh, from slavery times, right, we were taught to eat wrong. That is wrong. The people who were slaves ate very well, right? They had little seeds. They had their own fruit. They had their own vegetable gardens. It was when we were set free and when we migrated to other places that we learned how to eat whatever we could find. That's where our lack of good habits came from. So when we look in the mirror and we think about weight, right, we have to think about what we're putting into our body, because what we put in is what we're going to get out. So when you talk about risks of obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, right, insulin resistance, that means that no matter how much insulin our body makes, which controls our blood sugar, because we're overweight, the pancreas gets tired, because the more weight we put on, the more insulin the body has to produce, and the pancreas gets tired. I just finished a weight loss journey because I don't want to get retired and start taking pills for diabetes, because diabetes wiped out my mother's entire family. My mother died at 49, so I already got 20 years, right? Where my dad is 98, he has other other challenges, right? But at the end of the day, I have one second cousin, and that's all I have for my mother's side. So they started dying off from diabetes, or as they would say, sugar diabetes, at the age of 23. And the oldest person was 77. So I'm 6 months from being 70. The one thing I don't want to do is get diabetes. And my fear, as much as I'm a nurse for 47 years, is having to stick myself and give myself insulin. It ain't going to work. Because I'm scared of needles. I give them very good, but when it comes to needles, that's not me, right? So your body mass index is something that was created that tells you how much you're supposed to weigh for your height. Well, I don't think it was created for black women, because we got all of this and we got all of this, and no matter if we 5'1", we're stacked like a brick house, so it don't work for us. But it's just something that when we go to our doctors, they always tell us your BMI is supposed to be 25 and your BMI is 33 or 35 and you're morbidly obese. Just something I just wanted to explain to you about. But anyway, in order to lose weight, you need to set a goal, right? So my goal was 145 pounds, so I'll use me. So I started this journey in October. I went to a weight loss doctor. No, I didn't do gastric bypass because, again, I'm scared of needles, scalpels, stitches, everything else. But I wanted to get myself together, and I needed accountability because I tried on my own and it didn't work. So in October, I was 192 pounds. As of Wednesday before I got here, I was 145 pounds. So I feel good. I feel healthy. Mr. Arthur let my knee go, because when I was up in 190, I had so many rolls in the front, I couldn't tell what part was what, right? And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't like the image I saw of me. And that's the one thing I want to encourage you ladies. When you look in the mirror, if you don't like what you see, do something about it. It doesn't have to be drastic. It doesn't have to be in 2 weeks' time, but you can fix it. Find somebody who has the same problems as you and become a partner. Get an accountability partner. Somebody that can say to you, girl, now you know you like a little apple in that dress. Why you got that on? Like Stacy used to tell me, Mommy, why you got on that medium dress? She's very honest. She's my mini me, and I would be very, very mad and hurt. But when I took off the transparency lens, and when I looked in the mirror, it was medium. Probably worse than that. Instead of having the 5 rolls, I probably had 8 because it was really too small, right? And I couldn't breathe either, so I always looked like this. And I was smiling, not because I was happy, because I couldn't breathe. So just something to think about. So create your own action plan. Set little goals. In 2 weeks, I want to lose 2 pounds. Something simple. Don't go drastic. Think about your diet, right? Instead of eating 3 meals, make it 6, right? Divide them every 3 hours. Don't eat 3 meals because you know if you don't eat breakfast, you're going to eat double lunch. It ain't going to work. When you get past 30, your digestive system is not the same. None of us should be eating past 7 o'clock. None of us. And I don't know about y'all, but at 69.5, my bladder does not hold 400 cc's. Maybe 100 cc's, but 400 is not going to work. You need to drink more water. The more water I drink, the more times I got to go to the bathroom. You know that thing said, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go? Well, that's what my bladder tell me, right? So I ain't drink no water this morning because I know I'm coming up here because otherwise I'd be, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. But you set little goals for yourself. Exercise. If you know you can't run, don't run. Just start walking and walking and walking. You walk 10 minutes this week. Next week, you walk 15 minutes. If you walk 10 blocks, that's a half a mile. If you make a half a mile for the first 2 weeks, if you have high blood pressure, you take your blood pressure before you start, you wait a half an hour, and then you take it after you walk and look for the change. Make notes for yourself. When you go to your doctor, don't let him or her tell you what to do. You tell them what you're going to do because nobody knows your body like you. So what should you eat? Fruits and vegetables. Sometimes you have to be careful with your fruits because certain fruits have natural sugar, such as pears, such as grapes. They are naturally sweet, so you need to be mindful of that, especially if you have diabetes or hypertension. Bananas may be good for you, but they have high carbs. Another thing you have to watch. So you just have to be mindful of what you take into your body. Not something you're going to learn today, not something you'll learn tomorrow, but just think about it. Start doing your little research. All the internet, we got iPhones, Samsung, whatever you use, just start doing research on what you eat now and look and see what you eat now, what you can substitute. Just do a little bit of something. And then I also gave you a plate. And in this plate, it's divided into 3. So one half your plate should be just vegetables. And the other half should be divided between meat and starches. So now, your fist should be the size of a piece of meat. Now, we know this ain't nothing for a piece of chicken. This is probably a little piece of chicken thigh without steroids, right? But this is how much meat you should eat at a serving, right? If you start out small, if you start doing one thing, you have to build up on it. It's not something you can do overnight. But that's the purpose of this plate. And again, I told you about the exercise, walking, dancing. Stacy has some music in her car. It's like an African music, right? Afrobeat. And we just be moving and grooving in the car. We be driving, though, I ain't gonna lie. But, you know, if we got up and did a little bit, you find your own music, you get in the mirror, you make up your own, dance routine, and that's exercise. Do a little bit. They have, for seniors over 65, they have chair exercises now that still help you strengthen as well as lose weight. Something simple. You don't have to go to the gym and waste your money. If I think about how much money I waste on the gym, I could probably get me a real Mercedes and pay cash for it. That's how much I wasted. Because as soon as I go there and see the little girls looking like Stacy, like that, I'm done. Okay, when they say bends, I went to, what was it? A kickboxing class one time. My oldest daughter's friend is a dance teacher, and she recommended this studio not too far from me. So the first thing that happened was the guy who owned the karate studio, he couldn't even lift his legs. I said, oh, that's strike one for me. Because if he can't lift his legs, I know I can't lift my legs. And it was 2 of us in the class. So it was me at 58, I think it was 58 at the time, against a 12-year-old girl. He said, lift your legs. I said, what do you expect me to do with her? Right? I couldn't lift my legs, so I was very discouraged. So I quit. I had already paid for 12 lessons. I quit. But he couldn't lift his legs either. So how you going to tell me to lift my legs against a 12-year-old girl? So for me, why did I even bother, right? I got to do what I can do for me. I can't compete with anybody else. So if the gym don't work for you, don't do it. Take that money that you would pay per day or per week for a gym, put it in a jar, and save it. So when you lose one dress size, buy yourself a new dress. Put a new dress size, right? That's how you do it. Just take your time. You got to be the best you that you can be, right? So some other things you can learn is meditation. Because I know there's some time, like last night, those ladies that had all those pastries out there, right? And they were smelling good. It was just too late for me. And right now, this here ain't eating no peach cobbler. Mm-mm. Took me too long to get it. I may have a little taste of Stacy, but I ain't gonna eat it. I know that's my favorite, and if I start, I'm gonna eat that whole little pan, and then I'm gonna be up all night like a fire engine because my stomach is gonna hurt, right? So you gotta think about things. Sing a song, worship, write down things, start a journal. Write down how you're feeling when you start your journey, right? Write down scriptures. There's many scriptures on weight loss. There's pages and pages. If you put in weight loss, scriptures for weight loss, you'd be surprised how many scriptures there are. Or weight loss to get motivated. Tons and tons of scriptures. Grab you one or two and use those to talk to yourself every day as you get started on a weight loss journey. This will help you during the day. I can do all things through Christ. That strengthens me. Simple things that you can get yourself encouraged. You know, sometimes we got to encourage ourselves. We ain't got to wait for nobody else. And when you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, that should be enough encouragement. Be able to laugh at yourself. They said belly laughing strengthens your stomach muscles. I know when I think about those rolls and I can't even count them, I used to laugh a lot. Laughing and crying at the same time. Lord help me, because what I'm going to do with these rolls here? Something got to go, right? And always be joyful, because no matter what we see in the mirror that we like or we don't like, we're still here for a reason. That means our race has not been concluded, and we still got more race and steps to run. So that's my spiel on self-image and self-esteem. So now I want to get to the bigger picture, which is pre-diabetes. Who can tell me what pre-diabetes is? Because I want this to be interactive. I don't want to just talk and talk. What's pre-diabetes? Talk up, I can't. Right. You're prone to diabetes, but you're not there, right? So, if you have a history of diabetes or a family history of diabetes, doctors should be testing you for pre-diabetes. It's not no longer just your blood sugar. It's what they say A1C, which is a test that they do in blood that shows the doctor over 3 months your level of blood sugar, how it goes up and down, up and down. The numbers keep jumping. It used to be 6.2 pre-diabetes. Now it's down to 5.7 and under. And if you have a history of diabetes in your family, when you go for your physicals, you should be asking your doctor to test you for it, right? Because even though they may not want to do it, your insurance covers it, because they don't want you to be diabetic, because when you become diabetic, they got to pay more money for it, right? So you want to make sure you get tested to see where you are, right? So one of the questions you may ask, my mother has diabetes, should I be screened, right? When you go to the doctor, there's a term called Ask Me 3. You should have 3 questions that you ask your doctor. It's a doctor's visit. That means it's your visit to ask your doctor what you need to know, not him or her telling you. Because if you think about it, when you go to the doctor, they don't even look at you. They're looking in the screen. They say blah, 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 right? They're speaking in tongues. You don't know what they're saying, right? And then you get to your car, you get to the train station, you say, I didn't even ask him what I wanted to ask him, right? Well, too late. When's your next appointment? 3 months down the road, right? You try to call them back, they don't answer. So you go to the doctor with 3 questions. And before you get out that chair, wait a minute, doctor, I need these 3 questions answered. You take a paper, you take a pen, and you write down. And you do not leave that chair until you get your question answered, right? So ask me 3. Write that down. That's going to be the code word for when you go to the doctor. Are there any foods that you can eat to help avoid prediabetes? There's not any particular food that's pre-diabetes prone. You just have to eat the right food at the right time and know how to eat proportion-wise. Should I speak to a dietitian about a change in diet? You can. And that should be part of your yearly checkup, that you should be able to speak to a nutritionist or a dietitian to see what they can help you do about what you're eating, to see if you're eating the right thing. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Do they tell you that? No, because everything is a time limit. But your health has limits on time too, because unhealthiness is going to limit the time you got on this earth, right? So where they're limited in how much time they spend with you, which is normally a clinic visit is 20 minutes, right? Or if you're a new person, maybe 40 minutes when they get all the history. Your time is just as important. So take your own questions with you, right? That's real important. So, jump around. So I want to go back to diabetes. So what's diabetes? Diabetes now is blood sugar over 120, right? Right now, diabetes strikes anybody, including 8 and 10-year-olds. 8 and 10-year-olds are getting adult diabetes. Why? Because of cell phone, internet, sedentary lifestyle, because they're so busy sitting down, they don't play, they don't run. Back in the day, remember we used to do hopscotch and skellies and all kinds of things because we didn't have no cell phone, right? We barely had a black and white TV. And when our parents put us outside, you better play when you had a chance, because when that sky started getting gray and they call you up, you didn't come upstairs, you know what you were going to get, right? So we ran until we couldn't run no more. Going to bed dirty before we could even be getting a bath. We were passed out already. These kids are not doing it. Think about the longer you live, the longer you have diabetes, what it's going to do to your organs. Because it's not just your kidneys, it's not just your pancreas, it's your brain, it's your eye, it's your lungs. Diabetes touches every organ in your body. So you have to think about that. It's a multi-organ disease, right? And when you think about disease, it's dis-ease. So it causes your body to not be at ease. So we need to fix it if we have it, and we need to prevent it if we don't have it. That's really important, right? So it's a serious condition, and it's something that you can manage, right? Diabetes should not be managing us. We should be managing diabetes. How do we do that? We get the diagnosis, we find out what we need to do, and we fix it. Some people say they don't want to take medication, they don't want insulin, they don't want this and that. Let me tell you something. Everything that's good for you is bad for you, but if you're well informed and you know what to look for as side effects, take your medication. Because if that's what's going to keep you from going blind, amputation. I remember as a little girl, my grandmother, uncle died. We used to go down south on a bus, the Greyhound bus, the local bus, because we were poor. So my uncle would always send us a one-way bus ticket on a Greyhound. And every year for like 3 years, one of my uncles died. But this one year, my uncle died, and my grandmother had cotton in between her toes, right? Little did we know she already had gangrene from diabetes uncontrolled. So by the time we got home, half her foot is amputated, then half her leg, then above the knee. Within 3 months, right? Within 6 months, they just took off the other leg. Again, sugar diabetes. What did we have every morning for breakfast? Biscuits, syrup, everything that she should not be eating, we should have not been eating, she was eating. So you have to be mindful of your diet and what you're going to eat. So there's type 2 and type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is called insulin-dependent diabetes, right? That's where your body does not make none or very little insulin. Insulin is a hormone. It controls the blood sugar in your body. So after you eat a meal and your body goes through the digestive process, which takes about 2 hours, right? That's when you get the itis, you're real sleepy because you don't eat everything not supposed to eat. Insulin's supposed to kick in. Well, if your body's not making the insulin, and when your body starts breaking down the food, it breaks it down into carbohydrates and fat. You need insulin to break down the carbohydrate. So an example of carbohydrates would be mac and cheese. And we put like 14,000 cheeses into the macaroni and cheese. We put the eggs and we put the milk. Well, that's carb to the 10th power, right? Now you have type 1 diabetes. Insulin can't do nothing with that, right? So when the body finally struggles to break down that one little bowl of macaroni and cheese, your blood sugar is probably 300, 400, 500 because there's no insulin to break it down to keep it below 120. So people with type 1 diabetes, they sometimes call it juvenile diabetes because you find it a lot in adolescents, 14, 12. You need to take insulin because your body does not make insulin or have enough insulin, so you have to take it. But sometimes when you're over 50, because your body has not produced enough insulin and the medication is not working, you wind up taking insulin as a supplement. But type 1 diabetes is when you don't have enough insulin, and so insulin is your first medication of choice. Now, even though insulin controls diabetes, it also has its own side effects. So what are some symptoms overall of diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2? Get this thirst. Cannot quench your thirst like fire, right? You constantly go to the bathroom. You keep going and going and going and going, right? Weight loss. Not a good way to lose weight, but if you have diabetes in your family and you start dropping weight, 30 pounds, a lady told me she lost 30 pounds in a month. She was thinking maybe, she had cancer, but when she went to the doctor, she had diabetes, right? Extreme hunger. You're always hungry. You can never get enough food. You're constantly hungry. Now, it could be other things, but again, if diabetes is in your family, it's most likely that you have diabetes, right? Fatigue. You're constantly tired. You can sleep 12 hours, 14 hours, 20 hours a day, but you get up and you're still tired. Blurred vision. A lot of people, patients have told me that they get up and all of a sudden they can't see. They can't see, they're constantly going to the bathroom, and they're constantly drinking. All signs of diabetes. Or vomiting, abdominal pain. And they have this unpleasant breath odor. It's fruity odor, right? Like their breath smells like fruit all the time, right? Even if they do this, orange. When you break an orange and you start breaking it back and like the juice spills up in your face, how it smells like that. And itchy skin. They constantly itch. You'll see they start scratching and they get the little scabs on it. All signs of diabetes. So how do you treat it? Again, insulin. You go see a nutritionist. You may take some other medications to go along with it. But again, you can control it with treatment. But you have to persevere. Because most of the people who get the most, why? Because there's myth. We're not supposed to get diabetes. It's in our food, blah, 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 blah. Forget all of that. It is genetic. But most of the times with kids and young adults now, it's because of the environment and it's because of what we take in our body. So we need to make sure that we take care of it. The second type is type 2. That's normally known as adult onset. They say age of 50 plus. Again, you have the same symptoms, blood sugar 120 or more. You have the thirst. You have to go into the bathroom. You have all of the symptoms I already described. You will go to the doctor. Sometimes they'll take a blood test, the A1C. Sometimes if you're pregnant, you can also get diabetes, which should go away after you give birth. But again, if you have history in your family, sometimes it does not go away and then it transfers over to type 2 diabetes. Again, diabetes is manageable. But again, sometimes you get very irritable. That's why when you're diagnosed, it's important that you have either a bracelet or a card that you carry that says you're diabetic. Because also for people of color, when we fall out in the street, it's always assumed that we're drug addicted or we're drunk. And EMS has the right to go into your wallet to see if you're, number one, your identification, who you are, and to see if you have anything that says that you have a medical illness. Because if they know you're diabetic, they can start treating you en route to the hospital. If you don't have anything, then people can assume, and that could be your life. So it's important that you have identity. Other organs that are affected, I said the kidney, I said the eye, I said your feet. So if you are diabetic, you need to make sure that you go to a podiatrist once a year. Don't, if you go get your nails and feet done like I like to do every 2 weeks, take your own pedicure set. But make sure that your stuff is cleaned and sterilized, right? Because they have their own little sterilization, little machine that they use, a photosensitive. But if you do it yourself, you know that you sterilized it, right? So take your own stuff. Don't do your own pedicure. For ladies who wanted this tummy control stockings, when you have diabetes, you shouldn't do it because it compresses right here. These are all your big vessels here. Diabetes weakens your vessels over time, over years and years. It weakens your blood vessels, so it constricts. When your blood constricts in your big blood vessels, kidneys, your lungs, less blood supply, so don't wear them. If your husband has diabetes, they should not be wearing colored socks on their feet when they go to church. They should put on white socks, and then they should put colored socks on top. And they should adjust their shoe size to accommodate. Your heart. Again, diabetes, long-term, having diabetes, long-term risk. Again, the more you manage your diabetes, the less risk you will have. But again, it does affect your heart. So you need to make sure that you get your yearly physical. Or whenever they tell you to come back, make sure you get your things done. It's very, very important. Because the benefits outweigh your risk. The other things, check your sugar, right? I know the kits are it's not the kits that's expensive, it's the strips. Right? But there's a lot of things that you see on TV. You see those little benefit cards, they say 80% off. Get those cards, they're free. Trust me, you get a lot of money off. Because sometimes the insurance don't pay for all those new insulins. The Ozempic, Jardiance, that's like $1,000 a month. Depending on what your benefits are, your Medicaid, if you don't have Medicare, they don't pay for that. So then you have to substitute. Another thing, you need to have a discussion with your doctor. When they order medications for you, is my insurance going to cover it? But don't just not take it. And if you're having side effects for the medication, don't stop it. You tell them, this is not working for me. I'm getting nausea. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. Sometimes it's a matter of the dose, not the medication. Sometimes they need to adjust the dose. But again, we need to know what we're putting into our body, how it's working. So you should be walking around with a list of your medication, as well as a card to say you're diabetic. It is very, very important. Now, what happens if you're diabetic and you start getting real shaky and you're feeling irritable and you're not feeling right? That is also a symptom of low blood sugar. They tell you to buy these glucose tabs, too expensive, don't buy it. All you need is a pack of table sugar. And you put that pack of sugar under your tongue, right? If you're at home, get a tablespoon of sugar and you're feeling irritable, and if you took your blood sugar and it's under 70, you take it and put it under your tongue. and you hold it there. You let it dissolve, and that will counteract the low blood sugar. If you notice that you got a new medication and every day your blood sugar is dropping, you need to go and call your doctor because that's not a good thing. Your brain is very sensitive to two things, oxygen and sugar. And either one of them is not good for your brain, too high or too low. Things to think about. So diabetes, again, can be managed. It should not be managing you. You should be managing it. The next thing I want to talk about is hypertension real quick. We all hear about hypertension. A very, very controllable disease, but it can be deadly. It's called the silent killer for a reason, because most of the time it goes undiagnosed and people drop dead, and it's from uncontrolled hypertension, and the major cause is a heart attack. So every time you go to the doctor, you want to know what your blood pressure is. When the nurse or the PCA take it, what is my blood pressure? And you should have your own log, and you should be documenting it down. And if you are diagnosed with hypertension, you need to get a prescription for a blood pressure machine. And it should be covered under your insurance. And most city hospital-run clinics or community clinics have a program where you should be able to get one for free. Now, just don't take it. You tell them to teach you how to use it. What is considered high for you? What is considered low for you? Take it in the morning, 30 minutes after you get up, right? You take it throughout the day, and you take it before you go to bed, and you jot them down. So you'll see when it goes up, you'll see when it goes down, and then you know when it's too high and when it's too low. But when you think about hypertension, think about a garden hose, right? For those of you who have gardens or you have a house and you water, right? So what happens when you step on a garden hose? Stop. That's what hypertension does. Before your blood pressure goes up, our vessels like this, right? Everybody see this, a round hole? But with hypertension, those vessels constrict. So it's the same thing as if I step on a garden hose. It's pressure, pushing out your blood, right? The more pressure it is, what do you think happens to your heart? It's got to work harder, right? So as the heart works harder, it gets tired. Not only does it get tired, it gets big. Most people think of big being a good thing. The heart being big is not a good thing, right? Not good at all. It's taking a licking, but it keeps on ticking, but sooner or later it's going to stop ticking. That's a problem, right? It ain't like that Duracell bunny, it keeps keep going. It ain't going to happen after a while. So you need to make sure it's controlled. Again, it's going to be controlled by weight, it's going to be controlled by diet, and it's going to be controlled by medication. So you need to make sure whatever the doctor tells you, your blood pressure is blah, 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 you write it down. You need to be informed. We as women of color, we don't take care of ourselves. We don't write anything down. We don't know what's wrong with us. And we're the ones who drop dead from hypertension or a stroke. Can it be cured? Yes. Just like I told you about the same thing for diabetes, start walking more. Watch what you eat. Know what you're putting in your body and how much you eat. It's portion control. It is very, very, very important. Limit your salt intake. They have Mrs. Dash. Some people like it, some people don't. I didn't really like it. But again, there's other things you can use to flavor your food. You don't necessarily need salt. No salt pork, right? No, what's the other one? If you're going to use something smoked, you got to cook it and cook it till the water is clear, right? Frozen vegetables. Everybody likes frozen vegetables. The first water has to be thrown off. How do you think it stays frozen for so long? Preservatives, right? What do you think is preservatives? Salt. So you got to pour that water off. The same as canned goods. buy canned goods because it's cheaper for some people's budget. That water is no good in there. Even when you pour off that and you put it in water, that first water when you boil it, it has to be poured off. And then you start over and then you add your non-salt seasoning. Think about it. Anything that's preserved to stay on shelves for a long life is preserved in salt. And you got to wash it. Make sure you follow up with your doctor. Make sure if your medication, if you start to get dizzy after you take your medication and you wind up being dizzy all the time, you have to go back and tell your doctor. Or when your pharmacist, good example, when you get your medication, the pharmacist should ask you, it's not all of them, should ask you, do you have any questions? If they don't, you tell them, well, I have some questions about this medication. Because they give it to you in this piece of paper, but I don't know about you, I got four pair of eyes and I can't read it either. You ask them questions before you leave the pharmacy. So at least you have a head start on what you're taking and what you should look for. These are things that we don't think about. So some health statistics real quick. African American women are at greater risk for heart disease, stroke, and other cardiac illnesses. The risk is greater when you have physical inactivity. And among non-Hispanic Black females, 80% are overweight and obese. And of people over the age of 18, Black females have an increased risk of heart attack and heart disease due to smoking. And now you know everybody's changing over from smoking to vaping, vaping, whatever that thing is. Nobody knows what them chemicals are. But I can tell you from teaching nurses in the emergency department, whatever it is, they're going crazy. So these next two generations are going to have all kinds of things going on with them brains because they're going also to the illegal stores, and you don't know what they're putting in those. It's going to be a problem. Another thing is heart attack. I want to talk about that real quickly, and then I want to move on to menopause real quickly because I think my time is kind of running down. I want to leave a little 5 or 10 minutes for questions. Heart attack. Women of color, elderly people, and mentally challenged people have different symptoms than men. We have vague symptoms. I don't feel well. I have jaw pain. I have shoulder pain. I had a coworker who wasn't feeling well for a couple of days, and she went to the ER, and she says, I'm not feeling well. How would you say, describe more? I don't know. I think I'm having a heart attack. Well, how do you know you're having a heart attack? I don't know. I'm telling you what I'm feeling. I'm having a heart attack. Well, I'm the doctor, and I don't think you're having a heart attack. Says, give me an EKG. No, I'm the doctor. I know what you need, and right now, I think you're emotional. No, I'm not emotional. Well, you know, you're 45, and you're probably menopausal. She said, no, I ain't menopausal. I know something wrong with me. So, of course, she forgot about Jesus for a minute, and she started blurting out a couple of bad words. And they called security and everything, and they called the administrator, and she was just gone. She said, Jesus, you're going to have to forgive me, but bleep, 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 bleep. And she said, finally to the administrator, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If you give me the EKG, and I'm wrong, I will apologize, and I'll never come back to your ER again. So, of course, the administrator, because now he's red in the face as a tomato, and he want to get rid of us, say, give her the EKG to shut her up. The doctor's like, I don't care. He said, no, I'm going to overjump. You give her the EKG. So what do you think the EKG showed? She was having a heart attack. She had to be transferred to another hospital and have open heart surgery. But she was persistent. Had she not been persistent, she'd have died. A lot of Black women go to the hospital, tell them these vague symptoms, are sent home, and they die in their sleep because they're not. We have to be proactive because we only got one body. And when it's done, it's done. Unless Jesus come back and resurrect us like Lazarus, we ain't getting up no more, right? So we got to take care of our body. So make sure if your body tells you something's going on and you don't feel right and you know you need to go to the hospital, go. Call 911 or have somebody drive you responsible. Right? Not somebody going to give you a heart attack or kill you before you get there. Somebody that's going to be able to drive you and get you there in one piece so your heart can stay in your chest and not be in your feet when you get there, right? But again, we have vague symptoms. Remember that. So sometimes it's only stomach pain. Sometimes it's jaw or shoulder. Just be mindful. Another thing is stroke. Just quickly, stroke. You can't talk. Sometimes it's only that you lose your train of thought. You saw, what's the congressman? They keep covering him up, the old man. Every time you see McConnell, right? Is that his name? He's having TIAs. You see, he loses his thought. He can't talk, but they're covering up. He's having like mini strokes. Oh, he's having more than that, but we ain't going there. But these are things that we have sometimes, and we feel things in our body that are strange, right? We need to go and get them checked out, but we need to be persistent, and we don't do that. And the last thing I want to talk about, I want to talk about two things real quick. So menopause. Menopause, and I'm doing this quickly because my time is running out and I want to leave time for questions. So menopause. Many things happen with menopause, right? Once menopause is considered 1 year with no period. But I have to tell you that that doesn't always hold true. Because I went 1 year without a period, and exactly one day till I was saying hallelujah, the next day I got a period for the next 3 years. But I'm still having hot flashes, and I lost all this weight. Still having night sweats. And I don't even know. The only thing I know for sure is the baby factory is closed for sure. That's for sure. But at this time, too, you have to make sure you go to the doctor because estrogen is cardioprotective. It protects your heart. So when you don't have it, it leaves your heart unprotected. So other things can attack your body that wouldn't have protected it before you got menopause. So you need to be mindful of that. You need to be mindful of your symptoms, the irritability. Sometimes menopause is taken for mental illness, and it's not. My grandmother, at 52, died in treatment back in the day. And as a nurse, and asking, she had menopause. But back in the 50s, they thought she was crazy. Could have been. Walked from 42nd Street, Port Authority, 125th. Possible. But when I kept asking my uncle about the symptoms and everything was going on, she had classic menopause symptoms. But because she couldn't express it, because she was uneducated, it was one of mental institution. And that's exactly. And I read the book. There's a book, it's an old book now called Menopause. And if you read that, I read that, you get menopause. So what do? We have all kind of personality defects. I know I had them all. I had about 12 personalities in one day, depending on the day. Very good. I was hot, cold. Some things you need to know about menopause. Coffee, no good. Pepsi, really no good. Right? Sugar, no good. I know. So some things that I learned to do sitting under the table is I take my shoe off. Let the cold floor hit it. Right? Because they go, when menopause do, it comes from the top and they go down. And when it up, I've learned that, right? I've learned how to make sure I put a camisole on. Because when I'm in a meeting sometimes and they're already on my nerve and then I get a hot flash, I'll be sweating. So I make sure, this is sewed on real good because I don't want it rising up and they think an alien's coming out. But it's menopause. And sometimes they look at me, I said, I'm sorry, I'm just having a little menopause. I don't know about you, but I'm good. Because they be looking at me. You can't control it. I always have a fan in my pocketbook somewhere. Always have extra makeup somewhere because that's what it is. But I've learned if I don't eat sweets, I have my 1 cup of coffee, not every day, some days. But if you avoid these things, or if you can't do it right away in moderation, it helps with the menopause. The other thing is you still need to go and get your GYN checkup because there's things that happen inside, those little female areas, that you also need to know about changes that may mask signs of cancer, other little things. You know, the extra bleeding that would normally let you know something's going on down there. You need to go and get your checkup. And if you really want to know if you're in menopause, you can have your doctor, your GYN doctor, not your primary care who may be a male, a GYN doctor, do some blood tests, and they will tell you about your blood level, which is very important. Okay. So, okay. All right. So the final thing I just want to talk about real quickly is breast cancer. Black women, believe it or not, have the lowest percentage of getting breast cancer, but we have the highest percentage of dying. Why? Because we wait until the last minute. By the time we go to get checked out, we're already at stage 4, where nothing can be done. So you need to know your self-breast exam. You need to do it every month, even if you're menopausal, in the mirror. You need to look at the mirror, look at where your nipples are. You need to press them to see if there's any drainage. Not be having milk coming out at a certain age, right? If something's coming out and it's a certain color, that's another thing. If you see dimpling around the nipple, another thing that's abnormal, right? You need to put one hand behind your head, and you need to feel things you should do. But what I learned in doing this thing is that there's certain perfumes that you have to be mindful of. You need to read the ingredients, because some of these new perfumes, all the ones that's expensive and we like, have certain chemicals in them, and I think it's in your handout, that are cancer causing, and it's sensitive for black women only and women of color. So there is, if you Google it, there's a website you can go on. It will tell you all of the perfumes to avoid, and it'll tell you what perfumes that you should use that don't have these ingredients in it to cause breast cancer. And that's my lecture for today. So I want to leave 2 minutes for questions if you have any questions. Any comments? Yes. Yes, deodorants as well. Yes. Yes, aluminum for deodorants, but there's something else. It's something with an F. I can't remember off the top of my head, that are found in certain one of the most common perfumes now that are cancer causing for women of color. But if you Google it, they'll show you, and it'll show you the site where you can find the perfumes that don't have these agents in it. And that was something I didn't know, so that was new for me to learn. Yes, ma'am. Huh? Yeah, right. Perm relaxers is another one. Perm relaxers as well. Some of them have cancer-causing agents that's only sensitive for women of color. So, yes. And what? Well, that's what most doctors say, but still insist and have one because they have to pay for it. Because we're women of color. So statistics, most statistics are based on non-women of color, right? And we're always the exception to the rule because, truth be told, we're not pure in any way of our culture, right? We're a little mixture of everything, right? So my suggestion is still insist that you get it done, especially mammogram, your pap smears. My GYN doctor told me, too, I'm getting to that stage where I don't need it, but I'm going to take it. Don't give it to me anyway. That's how I see it. It's my right to ask for it, right? So that's important. The other thing is men are prone to breast cancer, black men in particular. So remind your husbands, as well as the prostate, they need to get those done. Prostate cancer is very curable in black men. Another cancer that is very, very detrimental to men of color. And we all know their thought process. But it's very important. Black men are more prone to breast cancer than non. Actually, so one of my hospitals died from breast cancer after he had been treated for colon cancer. Yes, ma'am. For which one? Breast cancer? I would say this somewhere between 35 and 45. They should at least get the initial screening, and if it's negative, then depending on the doctor, if they, it's not for family history for men, but I would say every 5 years they should get it checked. But usually 30. They'll do mammograms. Mammograms now for